So any magician worth their salt will have at least a passing familiarity with the seals and pentacles in the key of Solomon. And often it is assumed that there are a finite number of these pentacles and seals, and that we are only allowed to draw on the textual traditions as they've come down to us as a kind of orthodox canon of seals that we can use. And of course, the more you research this, the more you will find that there are a great variety of these seals and pentacles. And indeed, Solomonic magicians were accustomed to the practice of creating new seals and pentacles. And that's what I want to share with you today. A way to create your own custom Solomonic seals or pentacles. One of the strengths of this method, besides the fact that it is rooted in tradition and is extremely effective form of talismanic magic, as you can also use this in your spirit work, but one of the great strengths of this is that it's a creative process, that creating these Solomonic seals and Kabbalistic seals using traditional principles from scratch is a creative enterprise. Now, if you are into hermetic magic or ceremonial magic, you're likely to have come across sigil magic, which was popularized by the chaos magic current in the 90s. And even though this is a fairly modern development, one of the strengths of sigil magic, like the technique that I'm going to share with you today, is that it's a creative process. If you've ever made one of these monogram sigils that the chaos magicians popularized, you'll find that the process of creating these is enjoyable. It allows you to invest your energy into making a magical symbol that is aesthetically appealing to you and your occult sensibilities. And even a simple thing like that is enough to infuse that kind of work with additional force. And this is one of the reasons that I really love this technique. Now, the second reason that I love this technique that I'm going to show you today is that it is especially well suited to practitioners of hoodoo or African American conjure, and any magicians, folk magicians, Solomonic magicians, Solomonic folk magicians, and cunning men and women who are fond of working with the Psalms magically. And the reason is that this technique uses sacred scripture as its central mechanism for creating one of these talismans or seals. And if you like working with scripture magically, then you're likely to enjoy this. The bare bones of the method is as follows. You simply find a piece of scripture in the Bible that is going to symbolically or even literally allude to the magical outcome that you are hoping to create with this seal or talisman. And then you are going to take a symbol that is used in that verse. You will create a visual representation of that symbol. You will surround it with two concentric circles, and within those two concentric circles you then inscribe a verse of scripture. Now, this is enough for this kind of talisman to work. And I'm going to share with you some of what Cornelius Agrippa, or rather a text that is connected to Agrippa. There is some disagreement as to the authorship of this text, but it is very much part of the Western magical tradition. If you've not seen this, you should check it out. Of course, it fits into this sequence of works, the 3 books of occult philosophy, and these are really foundational for the Western magical tradition. So I encourage you to check these out, to learn more about these texts, to go to these texts directly and other source texts like these and study them yourself. So, discussing Pentacles, the author of the 4th book writes, "But the holy pictures which do make the Pentacles are they which everywhere are delivered unto us in the prophets and sacred writings, as well as of the Old and of the New Testament, even as the figure of the serpent hanging on the cross and such like, whereof very many may be found out of the visions of the prophets, as of Isaiah, Daniel, Esdras, and others, and also out of the revelation of the Apocalypse. Therefore, when any picture is posited of any of these holy images, let the circle be drawn round about it on each side thereof, wherein let there be written some divine name, that is apt and conformed to the effect of that figure, or else there may be written about it some versicle taken out of part of the body of Holy Scripture, which may desire to ascertain or deprecate the desired effect. If a pentacle were made to gain victory or revenge against one's enemies, as well visible as invisible, the figure may be taken out of the second book of the Maccabees, that is to say, a hand holding a golden sword drawn, about which we let there be written the versicle there contained, take the holy sword, the gift of God, wherewith thou shalt slay thee the adversaries of my people of Israel. A verse and an image from that verse, a symbol or a visual allegory of some sort that is then portrayed on the seal. And it doesn't need to be beautifully rendered. If you've seen any of these seals in the tradition, some of them are very crude pictograms, really. So it's not so much about the quality of the art necessarily, but if this is a problem for you, drawing is difficult for you, then you could, for example, consider finding some source images online and tracing the outline. This is a very easy technique. Just trace the outline of that symbol. So, for example, if you're using the sword, as in this example that Agrippa gave, then you would find a picture of a sword and you just trace that sword surrounded with two circles, and then use the verse that has been chosen that employs the image of a sword, right? And Donald Tyson makes a very interesting remark about the magical principle behind why this kind of talisman work, and he says the following: the importance of this sort of sacred imagery in the history of practical Western occultism is considerable. These were not mere pictorial representations of prophetic visions, but embodied in a visual form the occult virtue of the corresponding sacred words of Scripture. To look at such an image was equivalent to uttering aloud on the breath the sacred words that describe it. The combination of the sacred verse with the image somehow incorporates the occult virtue of that text into a talismanic form that is then usable by the magician to procure the ends that he desires. So, for example, let's say I've decided to create a love drawing talisman. You might look in the Song of Solomon, select the verse, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. For your love is better than wine. Your name is an oil poured out. Therefore the virgins love you." So from that verse we can extract a couple of symbols already. We can extract this symbol of wine. We can extract this symbol of a wine goblet or a wine glass. And because there is speak of kisses, we can extract the symbol of lips. We then would place these into concentric circles with the verse from the Song of Solomon that we've used. And as you can see in the example that I've produced here, adding divine names, adding angel names and so forth might well give it that extra boost of power. And a simple way of doing that without necessarily having to really study Kabbalistic literature that closely is to simply select a planetary rulership that is appropriate for your pentacle, and then use one of the standard 7 holy names that is associated with that sphere, along with the archangel of that sphere. So, for example, in this seal, this love seal that I've created, I've chosen the archangel Anal. I've included that archangel Sigil on the goblet, I've drawn it in there, and to the left I've used the holy name of the sphere on that seal. And while these are additional embellishments to give it power, they're by no means necessary. The verse combined with the image is plenty. That works perfectly well, and you will have great results if you do that. Now, you might ask, well, what materials do I use to create the seal? And of course, in the tradition, often it was said that these should be done on various metals, but by no means necessary. Using clean paper, some good quality paper, to draw these by hand, and you might want to add some astrological timing in there by drawing your custom seal in the hour of the planet that is most suited to the magical outcome. And of course, if it is a constructive seal, something that is designed to draw an influence closer to you, then you want to do that during the waxing moon. And if it's a seal that has sort of clearing away effects or some sort of negative effect, a combative magic of some sort, then you would want to do that during the waning moon. This is a lot harder to explain than it is to do, and especially if you're of a creative bent. It's a very intuitive process. You merely need to search scripture. The Psalms are a good resource for this, but of course there are many other great examples in the Bible that I have. Looking, for example, in the book of Revelation, very rich symbolism there. But the Old Testament has got a wealth of rich symbolic material that would translate well into symbolic imagery that would key into the power of that text, would draw on the occult virtue that is contained within the entire tradition. And now we're talking about the magical potential of Scripture, harnessing the force of that tradition, the pressure of how many thousand years of reverence and mythic force that is encoded, that is distilled into the scripture, and focusing that magically. And that is the essence of Solomonic magic that is based in the biblical tradition. For me, this is a wonderful way of reclaiming the Bible. It's a wonderful way of reclaiming the Judeo-Christian tradition and empowering yourself magically with that on your own terms. And this is why I love this method. It's a creative tool. It's a lot of fun. If you enjoy creating sigils, you might like experimenting with this technique. And then the question, of course, is what do you do with these seals once they've been created? So there are many things that are of course possible. One great tool, one great approach that I can suggest is to use these in conjunction with my Kabbalistic candle magic system that I've outlined previously on this channel. I'll put a link down below to that technique, but as you know, if you've watched that, is that method, that system uses seals from the Key of Solomon as a central part of focusing and directing the energy of the spirits which you invoke using that spell. Now, I get emails from clients often saying, which seal would you recommend for astral projection, or which seal would you recommend for strengthening my social media presence? And sometimes these requests don't fit very neatly into what you might find in the Key of Solomon. There is no seal necessary given for that. So this method then allows you to create a custom seal tailored to your purpose, which you can then use in that spell with ease, right? And then, of course, there are alternative ways which this seal can be deployed. Much like other Solomonic seals, in the tradition are used in mojo bags or affixed to vigils and candles in some way, you can do exactly the same thing with your seal. You can of course also use this seal during the evocation of spirits, because the seals in the greater key of Solomon are really a way of directing the spirits, of programming the spirits using the language, this magical language of scripture and image, right? So you're of course free to use them in the same way during your evocation procedure to direct spirits. And then of course in its simplest form, you could just use the seal as a talisman. You create the seal using the methodology that I've given, consecrate it during a suitable planetary hour, and then wear it on your person, put it in your wallet, or put it in your telephone case behind the back of your telephone. If you've got a telephone case, that's a really great spot to put seals. You can take off the back and literally slot that in there, and that will be on you at all times, because we always have our phone. We might not even have our wallet, but we always have our phone on us these days. So that's it. This is how you can create a Solomonic seal or pentacle that is tailored to your needs. If you try this, please comment down below. Let me know how it works for you. If you have any questions, also post these down below. I hope that was clear. I hope you found that interesting and useful. If you did, remember to like or to subscribe. And till next time.